Just 6 weeks after voters elected new regional councillors, their jobs now hang in the balance.
The biggest shake-up to local government since 1989.
The government has proposed a clean slate, no more regional councillors, with local mayors instead calling the shots, perhaps under the supervision of government appointees.
Simplicity drives efficiency and efficiency drives effectiveness, and that means more stuff will get done.
But do the promises of simplicity and savings hold up? Where does all this lead in the long term? And what are the alternatives? Kia ora, ko Russell Palmer aho, ānei te pūrongo tō rangapū mō tēnei wiki. Welcome to Focus on Politics. The announcement came on Tuesday afternoon as ministers laid out what they called a radical simplification of local government.
The status quo is not an option. Kiwis deserve better.
Step 1 would be to remove the regional councillors and hand their duties over to the city and district mayors. Those mayors would form combined territories boards. Then, in Step 2, those boards would have to come up with a longer-term solution for how to run the show, with the government keen on amalgamation. They would have 2 years to do that, with their plans then sent back to the beehive to be assessed against criteria including better value for money and better services. Final sign-off would lie with the local government minister, currently National's Simon Watts.
By removing regional councils, we can cut duplication, reduce costs and streamline decision making.
And with fellow National Minister Chris Bishop busily reforming the Resource Management Act, or RMA, they said now was the perfect time to make this kind of change.
Environmental enforcement and monitoring is expected to eventually be centralised and taken off regional councils. Regional councils will have a significantly reduced role as part of this new planning system. With this context, we have decided to take the opportunity to tackle the problem of local government at the same time.
A quick refresher on that problem. New Zealand has 3 main kinds of council. The regional councils are the biggest in terms of land area, and there are 11 of them. They look after environmental aspects of resource management, think flood protection, air quality, pest control and bulk water supply, as well as public transport planning and funding. The regions they cover were set up under the 1989 local government reforms, based mainly on water drainage patterns in line with the then new resource management laws. The next kind is territorial authorities. These are your city councils and district councils, which most people would think of as their local council, responsible for community services, roads, water, recycling and waste, parks and libraries, local bylaws, zoning and building consents. They're based around urban areas like towns and cities. There are 67 of them. The third category, unitary authorities, basically combine the responsibilities for territorial and regional councils, so the area has just one council. There are 6 of these, including the big one, Auckland. Mr Bishop is not impressed by the overall setup.
Current structure of local government is no longer fit for purpose. Duplication, disagreements and decisions that defy common sense. The system is out of date and heaving under its own weight. Local government has lost the social licence.
And he's not the only one to feel that way. New Zealand First Deputy Shane Jones was one of the first to suggest scrapping regional councils altogether.
We have had green overreach, we have had hapu overconsumption, and we have stifled growth.
Many councils argue it's a problem of cost, and worry communities may not be all that happy with the government's plan. Here's Canterbury Regional Council Chair Dion Swiggs speaking to Checkpoint as part of the LGNZ umbrella group.
There's been cries out for the pressures that we've been under from funding from all sorts of corners for quite some time. And last year at the local government conference, local government sector as a whole agreed to look at the structure of local government. And we've been at the Canterbury Regional Council have been looking at this for some time. So yes, change needs to happen, but what we're saying, or what I'm saying here, is that change needs to come with the communities. And what I'm really worried about with the proposals today is, do we have the community buy-in to make these changes?
Bear in mind that under the reset, the regional council staff will carry on with the job, reporting to the local mayors instead of their own council. But that's only until those reorganisation plans are delivered. Chris Bishop isn't expecting a return to the regional council model.
It is highly unlikely that the status quo would fit up against those criteria.
More likely is a consolidation of local councils who, looking at the new resource management approach, may decide it's just easier to join forces. Mergers and acquisitions, amalgamation. The Auckland Council model writ large across the entire country. Gisborne was the first unitary council, and Mayor Rahette Stoltz likes the model.
It works really well for us because we have a single governance structure making both the local and the regional decisions, which means there's real clear accountability. Your community know exactly who is responsible for that and for what. And then we can also have integrated planning across our land, water and infrastructure. And then the last example I will use is during Cyclone Gabrielle. It is easier to have a coordinated emergency response. When you need rapid decision making, you don't need to negotiate across multiple councils.
But it's unclear just how much duplication it removes. Even under unitary authorities, clear boundaries are needed to avoid, for example, people granting consents for their own projects.
It is still the same organisation, but there are clear functions and there's a clear delineation there.
And the Mayor does not think the community would back further amalgamation with neighbours, something the ministers are clearly keen on.
It is a much more efficient model, actually, in practice than what exists today.
I agree. So our expectation is that some regions will jump at this opportunity.
Chris Bishop is also the MP for Hutt South and favours the approach for the Wellington region.
Having Lower Hutt and Upper Hutt and Porirua and Wellington City is pretty nuts. So if this proposal goes ahead, Wellington will get the chance to do what they have not done for quite a long time and seize the opportunity for growth.
Former Labour MP turned Wellington Mayor Andrew Little told RNZ it may be inevitable.
I think many of us would still say there needs to be a level of public support required before you go down that path. But I think we are heading that way.
Amalgamation isn't always popular with ratepayers. In the Wellington region, for example, Upper Hutt appears to be a holdout. Here's Mayor Perry Zay.
There's a concern in the community that we would lose our local voice, and I think that for Upper Hutt, that's something that's really important to us.
The ministers see this as a chance to get those holdouts over the line.
Local councillors and mayors say to me, just got to make us do this. It will never happen bottom up, no matter how crazy we think the current system is. It's just too hard for local government to get it over the line themselves.
And if that doesn't work, the minister can ask for any reorganisation plans that don't align with the government's vision to be rewritten. Those guardrails will be set out as strict criteria, as Mr Watts emphasised on Checkpoint.
On the basis that it is aligned with that, then there'll be no issue. And actually, we go into this process of reform with a very much an open mind, and I expect that it'll work its way through in an efficient way.
Is this a power grab, Minister?
No way. It's absolutely not. The reality is that we're putting power back to local mayors within their local communities.
But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. The legislation is not likely to be passed until mid-2027 after the election, and it's unclear exactly when the boards would take over from the regional councillors.
One option is that they continue to serve out their term until 2028. One option is that once the Combined Territories boards take effect, whenever that shall be, then that layer of elected councillors are abolished.
Chris Bishop isn't too worried about that potentially overriding the results of last month's local election.
The status quo can't remain locked in formaldehyde forever.
But there's still a lot of water to flow under the bridge before those plans are signed off, and some thorny complications lie just beneath the surface, like exactly how much power each mayor on each regional board would get. One vote per mayor would give people in small rural towns a much bigger say than the hundreds of thousands in the major cities. But going on a purely population basis would swing the power imbalance the other way, giving the cities all the say.
There needs to be a balance between rural and urban, and making sure that smaller councils and people who live in smaller parts of New Zealand, who are very important, have a say.
The government's preference is a kind of middle ground, using population to apportion votes, then having the local government commission hand out a few extra votes for the rural communities. That's one of the things being consulted on, along with whether minister-appointed Crown Commissioners should join the regional boards to give the government more of a say. Options range from having no commissioners, or having them as observers only, through to giving them a majority vote or veto over the board's decisions.
It's not a power grab. This is about making local government fit for purpose.
Then there's the problem of regional boundaries. They don't always match up with the boundaries for local councils. Taupo District Council, for instance, is spread across 4 different regions. The proposals present 2 options. Either a neighbouring mayor would adopt the population of the smaller outlying areas of the district, gaining extra votes, or the split district would get some votes on all relevant regional boards, perhaps with local ward councillors holding those votes rather than the mayor. Race relations are another concern. Treaty of Waitangi settlements will be carried over, but Māori and other regional constituencies will be done away with. No iwi representation on the new boards.
The government's view is that we don't agree with separate representation in that regard, so we are proposing to essentially have elected mayors who are elected by New Zealanders to govern these combined territories boards.
Wellington's Andrew Little, a former treaty negotiations minister, is sounding a warning.
One thing that regional councils do is regulate the environment. The fundamental promise of the Treaty of Waitangi was tino rangatiratanga over whenua, over land and other valued things. So to undermine the representation of Māori over environmental things is a total backtrack on the obligations that we've been recognised for the last 50 years that the Crown has under the treaty. I mean, regional councils and district councils act effectively with Crown authority when they regulate the environment. So undermining that representation, I think, is a pretty serious attack on treaty obligations.
With the timing of the reforms, next year's election result may make all this a moot point. Te Pāti Māori's co-leader Debbie Ngarewa-Packer says the need for change is clear, but she's dubious about the government's motives.
My biggest fear is that it creates a pathway for government to have more control over big environmental projects such as assessments of seabed mining and petroleum and high-impact projects that we know that's what we're hearing from Shane Jones. We know that's what we're hearing from Chris Bishop, but there has to be surety for the continuity of communities, that their environments are going to be safe, that their people are going to be heard and seen in some of this decision-making.
The Greens local government spokesperson, Celia Wade-Brown, a former Wellington mayor, worries there's a mismatch between the regional council role and that of their replacements.
Existing territorial and city councils have got enough on their plate already. They have got really wide-ranging issues. We've got the government squeezing down on rates. I think this is going to just make local government less effective.
She's also concerned about the possibility of councillors not serving their full term.
It's anti-democratic when they've only just been elected. They really need to serve their term, work together with the district and city councils to look at new models. What would suit one area as a unitary council would not suit another area.
But it's far from clear whether a left-leaning government would roll back or tweak the changes. Like the other opposition parties, Labour's spokesperson, Tangi Utikere, is keeping his options open.
We are open to looking at how we can make local government work better for everyone, how we simplify things. That's where the focus needs to be on. Right now, it's about understanding what the implications are and ensuring that communities are a part of the conversation.
He worries about the influence of the Crown Commissioners.
To have veto rights. It's one thing to have an observer, it's another to give others a bit more rights than that.
And the effect on the environment.
What this proposal looks to do is water down, certainly the environmental protection side of things. So we're not opposed to taking a look at this, but we would have thought that it was important to, have a sort of collaborative approach around it.
Shutting the opposition out of such a big change certainly doesn't garner goodwill, but Chris Bishop says that's what the consultation phase is for.
We are consulting with everybody, and last time I looked, the Labor Party are part of the ecosystem, so they'll get a chance to have their say.
But as became a problem for Labour's 3 waters reforms, councillors like Dion Swiggs aren't too happy either.
It's disappointing that the government hasn't worked with local government to look at these proposals. I understand that they just want to get on, and with the RMA reforms coming out very shortly, they're trying to preempt what that may look like. But we are elected by our communities, and we were only elected by our communities 6 weeks ago. And so I do feel for my colleagues around the country.
As with National's approach to water reform, the ball will be in the council's court. Basically, figure it out yourselves, or we'll make you do it our way.
It's going to end up on us, with all the other responsibilities that our TAs have and regional councils, to say to our communities, is this what you want? This proposal may work for some regions. but it might not work for other regions.
And it might be convenient to phase all this in with the RMA reforms, but some will question whether it really belongs at the top of the agenda. Here's Labour and National's deputy leaders, Carmel Sepuloni and Nicola Willis, debating that on Morning Report.
The government came into office saying that they were going to hand power back to local communities, and this is a deliberate attempt to take that away. Also, again, is this what New Zealand is prioritising? We've had a number of things pushed through by this government that weren't things that they campaigned on, certainly not at the top of the list for New Zealanders, not health, not jobs, not homes, and not action on the cost of living.
Well, this is actually about the cost of living. This is, when I talk to locals, they say to me that rates are one of the biggest cost of living concerns they have. They're also very concerned by the red tape, duplication, complexity in local government arrangements. We're responding to that.
A lot still to figure out over the summer break. Consultation closes on February the 20th. That was Focus on Politics. I'm Russell Palmer. Thanks for joining us. Mā te wā.